Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Movie Review, episode number 126. This is reviewing the very first film of MCU Phase 2. And this film is Iron Man 3. Yes. Now I should talk about the cover for this DVD case. It's different than the movie poster. Actually, it's one of the versions of the poster, yes. I've heard that the poster they used for Thor: The Dark World is this same poster, except they just simply switched around Thor and Jane Foster. It's a very lazy way of marketing. Yeah. The way this picture looks, it's fine. It's basically gives a good idea what we're hoping for. Now, I should point out, though, there is a comic book that explains what the heck happened between Iron Man 2 and 3 and of the reason why Rhodey was not involved with the events of the Avengers movie. Yeah, he was dealing with the re-emergence of the Ten Rings. Yep, that's why he was doing his comic book. Yeah, if you want to read the story fully, read Iron Man 3 Prelude. Yeah, that pretty much explains what Rhodey was up to during the time between Iron Man 2 and 3. And of course, him getting new armor. Though by this film, he is no longer War Machine. Nope. He is Iron Patriot. Which I think is a very stupid idea because for a lot of people prior to this movie coming out, the only person people thought of when people thought of Iron Patriot was frickin' Norman Osborn. But then, in the comic books, they actually have briefly Roy to become Iron Patriot. For about a year, at most. He even got a brief solo title as this. But the book got canceled after only releasing 5 issues. Yep. And the book itself becomes sort of a ripoff of Steel from DC Comics. That's just my opinion anyways. Yep. Now, is there any new character? Now, the only characters that pop up in this movie, you have 4 returning characters like usually. You have Tony, Pepper, Rhodey, and Happy, who's actually taking a smaller role in this movie, despite the fact him playing a big role in the last film. This film he just basically takes a smaller role. And I give you certain things about this film. One, that apparently Tony's been very extremely busy between movies, where apparently he's spending so much time building these armors. As a matter of fact, the armor he's using in this movie is his 51st armor he's actually built. Yep. And he's putting metal object in his body, which, from what I remember, now, before I get to that, I should point out that this movie takes heavy inspiration. It's loosely adapted from the Extremis arc. Those who know what the Extremis arc is, it was an arc that was written by Warren Ellis, released in 2004, that started off Iron Man Volume 4. Yeah, it came right after the events of Avengers Assemble. Yep. This one basically did introduce some elements of the Iron Man. It introduced a couple of new things in Iron Man's backstory. Like, the only thing that had changed was the location of where he became Iron Man, which is basically a source of inspiration for... Now, in the comic, they explained, oh yeah, he became Iron Man in the late 90s. Actually, it was early 90s, like around like 1991, 1992 during Persian Gulf. Yep, basically in Afghanistan, which is what they used for the beginning of Iron Man 2. This film, they pretty much use Extremis, which is basically the stuff from that storyline. Though in the movie, it's basically the way they portray for Tony, he doesn't get Extremis. He gets a version that he got in the comic books where he got a modified version that allowed him to store, like, allowed him to move, like, have the arm come on him, basically, like, at will. Just thinking of it basically makes the arm come on him, which is basically how the Extremis worked for him in the comic books. He had the Extremis in his body from 2004 to pretty much 2012. Yeah, for about 8 years he had this in his body until he had it removed because of a disagreement he had with an army general. Yeah, that's pretty much the way it was. Yeah, and that was basically prior to this one coming out that he got rid of the damn thing. Now, characters who are new to the movie making their first appearance in the films. First, let's talk about the 2 people show up in the film. Maya Hansen and Adrian Killian. Maya Hansen is definitely from the comic books. She appeared in the original Extremis storyline. She's actually integral to the original Extremis storyline. And she is one of the inventors of the virus. Yep. And like both movie and comic, she is no flame of Tony Stark's. Yep. But here's the strange thing about this character. After her debut appearance in the original Extremis storyline, She got arrested, though she was charged with the custody of Tony Stark, where she became a semi-recurring character during Iron Man Volume 4, and then, like, right at the beginning of her age, she disappeared. Yep, disappeared for about 4 years until the start of Karen Gillian's run for the book, where the first issue, she died. Yep, made her first appearance in 4 years and she died. Yep. Killian is a character from the comic books. Now, if you look at the characters in this film, almost like all the characters are essentially put like characters who are... Now, the only character who is not from the Iron Man comics is a character named Ellen Brannett. She is definitely associated with the main villains of the movie, AIM, who they made into a think tank. Even in the comics, they're a terrorist organization who were enemies of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, Iron Man's had some battles with AIM over the years, so that was fine. Now, the only character who is part of AIM in the movie, who is also part of the comics, is Ellen. She is the only one. And she's also the only character in the film who's had nothing to do with Tony Stark at all. She is a character who's associated with Man-Thing. At one point, she was Man-Thing's wife. Yeah, she was briefly married to Ted Stallus before he got turned into Man-Thing. She's actually a pretty beautiful woman, though the way they dress her up, it's kind of like a female Indiana Jones, which is kind of weird. And apparently, she was also using her husband to work for some other terrorist organization, which was later retconned to be AIM. Though they also made a retcon the fact that she was not married to him, that he was engaged to her. Well, Ted Stallus was engaged to Ellen. Yep. Now, the version of the movie is nothing. Aside from the name, the character herself has nothing to do with her comic counterpart. It's loosely based upon it. We also have Coldheart making his live-action experience, who was an agent of AIM, and according to the actor, loosely based on him. We also have John Taggart, whose character Firepower, who is a minor Iron Man villain. He too is loosely inspired by his comic counterpart, because these three have almost nothing to do with the original comic counterpart. Adrian Killian, they actually made him a combination of two different characters. Adrian Killian, who is a character in the comics, and he is a scientist. That part is true, the fact that he was a scientist. But here's the thing about this character. The guy only appeared for one issue. Yeah, he actually committed suicide, though he did appear in flashbacks throughout the rest of the Extremis arc, but the guy was known for being associated with the Extremis arc, which it makes sense to put him in the movie because, well, he helped create the damn thing, so it makes sense to put him in the movie. Having him have a connection to Tony Stark, that was completely made up in the movie. Yeah, that was completely made up. And the fact that apparently Pepper knew him, that was also made up for the movie. Yes. As for, like, the way that the Extremis worked for Tony movie, which is basically what they used, which he didn't take Extremis, Pepper in the movie gets Extremis later in the movie. Yeah, I'm not kind of jumping back and forth by revealing stuff that's similar to the comic books. She, of course, was never exposed to Extremis in the comic books. As a matter of fact, the only character who has any connection to Extremis, who gets not exactly exposed to it, though he is basically taking inspiration from a different character, is Adrian Killian. You see what they did with him? He's a combination of two characters. Adrian Killian, the scientist who made the damn thing, and the character Mahler. Yes. Like with Iron Man 2, they take two characters who are unrelated to each other, though these two are kind of loosely related, not by blood, but by story value, and they combine to basically become Adrian Killian. Yes. We also have the Mandarin appearing in this movie. But it's not him. Nope, it's an imposter. Yep. Played by Ben Kingsley. A man who was not the Mandarin. Despite the fact that when the movie was announced, it was teased that he could appear in the movie, and they made him white. Luckily enough, they kind of made up for this thanks to the one Shall All Hail the King. What's the plot of this movie? The movie starts out in 1999, roughly about 9 years before the very first Iron movie. We see Tony and Maya basically attempting to have sex on New Year's. Yep. And they, of course, have a brief run-in with Tony Stark. And he tries to get his plane off it because he ignores him. Because this is during a time he was a lot more addicted he was prior to become. He was a lot more of a dick than he is currently. And He gets thrown off, and later on he forms AIM. And they jump ahead to present day, where you have Tony and Pepper in a relationship, and she's currently the head of his company because he's busy making Iron Man armors. Yep, Rhodey's become Iron Patriot, though the reasoning for it in the film is that, oh yeah, it's too militaristic. Really? And what about Iron Patriot? The fact he's full of tons of weapons. We also have a character who is actually completely original to the MCU, President Ellis, which they reveal in Winter Soldier. His first name is Matthew. This character is named after the original writer of the storyline, Warren Ellis. Yes, that was actually a brilliant stroke of genius. Another brilliant stroke of genius about this character is who he plays him. William Sadler. Yes, which he plays a big role in this movie. Aside from this, the guy appears like one other time after this. He appeared for like an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And that, I think it was in season 2. And that's all you saw of the guy. Of course, he's mentioned in Winter Soldier. But aside from that, the guy made no other appearances after this. We also had the VP appear in this movie. Yeah, the Vice President is somebody who is not related to the movie itself. No. Yeah, he plays a minor role in the movie. Apparently, he was also the person who was the financier of AIM. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, he's played by Miguel Ferrer. Yes. Yeah, I know of this guy thanks to, of course, his appearance on NCS LA, who he played the deputy director of the CIA. He played the assistant director of the not the CIA, the NCIS. Yep. He also appeared in, aside from this movie, I also did talk about, he did appear in Teen Titans, the Jews Contract, which that was actually his last appearance to date because the guy died of throat cancer. I did hear that how they deal with this character on NCS LA is that the character gets stabbed to death. Yep. Now, the Vice President is very minor to the movie at most. Yeah, he barely plays a role, yet he's involved in the film's climax. Yep. Now, Tony also has a thing where, because he has all this metal stuff in his body, along with his arc reactor, he apparently cannot sleep. And the one time he attempts to sleep, his armor comes to life by itself and attempts to attack Pepper while they're in bed. Yes, I think this is a nod to when Ultron took when they had the sentient suit from Iron Man Volume 3. This is a nod to that. That's my personal theory what it is. I don't really know if this was confirmed by Shane Black, who was directing the movie. Yeah, Shane Black directed this film, which is one of 2 times that he and Robert Downey Jr. have actually worked together. The other course was, I think it was Layer Cake, I think it was the other film they worked on together. Let me look this up here. Yeah, because that's the thing when it comes to certain directors, where they actually work with people they've worked with in the past. hmm Yeah, this is by far the second time the team been together, and well, I'm trying to look up the name of the because Shane Black basically is not directing very long. Of course, he's going to also direct the film The Predator. hmm It was let's see, I think it was this film right here. Yeah, the film Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Yeah, that was the film that him and Robert Downey Jr. teamed up on before this film. Which, believe it or not, that was his second to last one before he did Iron Man 3. Because before he did Iron Man 3, he did not do a film for quite some time. He's done some films since then. I mean, the next one he did was Edge and Nice Guys, then The Predator, and then, of course, Doc Savage. He basically just known for writing. Yeah, he's mostly known for writing. He hasn't directed that much. But this is by far his first big film he's actually directed. First big budget film. Yep. Well, the first one people know about anyways, because, well, now people know about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. This film was also by far the second film in a row to gross $1 billion. Yep. And let's see what else. Oh yeah, they also have Agent Kenshow's present day, where apparently he's lost his glasses, and he's become like the head. He talks about aiding to Pepper, and it's implied he really wants to sleep with Pepper, despite the fact she's with Tony. Yeah, he really wants her for some reason. Yes. Yeah, that's the strange thing with Pepper's movie. She's basically reduced to become a damsel in distress again, despite the. This is like the third film in a row, though they don't do it like the same way they do it in the last film. This film, basically, she becomes a little more of a badass during the movie. Yes. And, like I said, when she got injected with Extremis, that's original to the film. She never got injected this in the comics at all. Also, original to the films, her relationship with Tony, when it's romantic, that's completely original to the movies because these two they have dated a couple times and they have slept together, but they have never been an official couple prior to the MCU. The whole thing of them becoming a couple, that's basically because of the movies. Though they're not currently a couple right now because Tony and Pepper are head of two different companies. Yep. And of course, we also see the debut of the Hall of Armors. Yes. A whole boatload of these things. Yep. Now, the film has this thing where you have these strange terrorist attacks happening at various Chinese places, like the Chinese theater in LA, which Happy was at, which he managed to save people, but he himself got injured, and of course he disappeared from the movie. So basically, Tony getting upset basically about his best friend being in the hospital. He basically tells manager his address, tells him, bring yourself to my house, I'll beat the crap out of you. So what is manager's response? Sending frickin' 3 Black Hawk helicopters to blow the crap out of his house. Yeah, they basically fire missiles, they fire machine guns, they basically destroy his house. Yes, the house that was seen in the last 2 films is completely destroyed by the end of this movie. Though they do have it where his armor survive. Yep. So Pepper is off someplace with Maya, and he gets all off to Tennessee, where he meets up with the character who appears in this movie, and I think it was Endgame. I think it was, yes. Well, he travels to Tennessee. Mm-hmm. His name is Harley Keener. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard something that he actually was supposed to sign a 3-picture deal with this movie, but he only had like 1 appearance aside from this. Yeah, he appeared in Avengers Endgame, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, where he actually aged up since Iron Man 3, like, because by the time he appeared in Endgame, he aged 7 years. Because when he appeared in Iron Man 3, he was 11. In Endgame, he's basically currently 18 now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, unknown why they never brought him back before that, but that's pretty much what they did. They interact for one brief scene. They basically have Tony investigating the whole Extremis stuff in this one town. He runs Ellen, and if people associate with Extremis, that's when he summons his armor, who apparently has been depowered, and he spends time trying to fix it. And he gets to fight with him in this town, and kind of tears apart of it, which is kind of rehash of Thor. In a way, like superhero fighting something that's not natural to a town and tear apart of it. Yeah, they pretty much, it's a retread of the first Thor film, but it's for one small scene, and it's not like the way it was in Thor, where you have the Destroyer and you have Destroyer going against Thor, Lady Sif, and the Warriors. This is basically Tony versus 3 people who are powered up with Extremis, which takes them all out in this movie. And of course, Rhodey, gets taken. Well, Sue gets taken, and then Killian, as Iron Patriot, kidnaps the president from Air Force One. Yeah. Oh, by the way, the Iron Patriot armor has got a password. What's the password? War Machine Rocks 1999. All caps. Or War Machine Rocks. Yeah. Even basically, Rhodey agrees in the story, this was a really stupid idea, changing his name from War Machine to Iron Patriot. Because next time he shows up, he's back being War Machine again. Because I'm sure that Whedon was like, yeah, him being Iron Patriot was stupid. So I'm putting back my War Machine armor. With no explanation. I'll talk more about that when I talk about Age of Ultron. Yep, and then they go down to Miami, have the big lamented battle between, you have Tony, Rhodey, and Iron Man's armors all pretty much taking on killing his army. And you have him going to various different armors, and then Rhodey gets back his armor. But before this, Tony goes basically to Killian's HQ and runs the mansion. For some people, this is where the film's plot grinds to a halt when they reveal about the whole thing of the Mandarin, where you see him, you see a guy just chasing around girls. Like, yeah, this is simply put for a lot of people. This is what turned people off of this movie. Was this one scene? Yeah, for a lot of people, this is where the film grinds to a halt briefly before the film picks up after this. And then you have Redmayne with him, and turns out, yeah, he's actually quite shocked to see that who the Mandarin is, and reveals that he's actually a drug actor who's on this pilot called The Cage, show called The Cage, and didn't really get off the ground. He doesn't really do much of anything at all after this. Yeah. And then, of course, it leads into that battle in Miami, where they have a big brawl with Killian's forces. Of course, Tony basically gets back Pepper. Pepper puts on armor briefly in the movie, teasing she might get an armor in the future, which she does in Endgame. I'll talk about that when I talk about Endgame. Yep, and eventually Killian is finally killed in the movie, thanks, of course, to basically exploding one of Iron Man's armors. And then you have the clean slate. Yep, the clean slate, which basically destroys all these armors Tony worked so hard in building. You also have a version of the Hulkbuster armor, which a more bigger version of this appears in Age of Ultron. Yep. And, well, then Tony basically gets extremities out of Pepper, and then he removes all the electronics up inside his body, including the arc reactor. Yeah, that gets removed. And then Tony goes back to his former house, and what does he do? He throws his arc reactor in the ocean, something he built back in Iron Man 1. And he goes in his car, drives off, and then we go back to this thing again, because this is the last of the Iron movies. No, I had heard something that they were going to do in Iron Man 4, but Robert De Niro's like, hey, screw that, I'm going to show up in Captain America Civil War. Yep. This film overall is a pretty good movie. It's by far a disappointment. Basically for the Iron Man trilogy films, this is by far a disappointing end to the movie. Now, this is not exactly what people were hoping for. I would say that this film is slightly better than Iron Man 2 due to the fact that Pepper gets a chance to do something in the movie, like the fact she gets beat up Killian, and the fact Shane Black writes her out like a complete badass. And, of course, my negatives about the movie, aside from the manager thing is minor to me at best. My friend Negra basically doesn't like that part about the film. My problem with the movie is the following. AIM being turned into a private think tank, even though it's supposed to be a terrorist organization. Recruiting 3 people to become extremist agents, only one of whom basically is part of AIM in the comic books. The other 2 are not. They have nothing to do with AIM at all. Yeah, Taggart is a guy called Firepower in the comics, and he himself has nothing to do with AIM. We also have another guy who's called Cold Blood in the comics. He is a minor Iron Man character, and he, of course, has also nothing to do with the AIM at all. Let's see. The VP, despite being one of the minor villains in the movie, does nothing. His involvement with AIM is minor at best. By the end of the film, AIM is pretty much all shut down because of their terrorist activities. Yeah, it's like very quick. Oh yeah, we also have this wonderful rescue sequence they had in the movie of Tony rescuing a bunch of people from a plane, I think it's from Air Force One, and basically that's when his armor gets destroyed. Of course, he's remote piloting the damn thing while he's going to Miami. So aside from the few negatives I have, it's not really a bad movie. It's just a disappointment. That's basically the problem with the film. It's disappointment. Mainly due to the fact that the villain himself, Adrian Killian, is interesting. The guy himself who plays him, I think he does a pretty good. I like his present version of himself than the past version. Past version I wasn't really a big fan of. Present version was a lot more interesting. Though I think his line of thing, I'm the real Mandarin, I think that was a really stupid line of dialogue they gave him in the movie, and the fact that he was infected with extremis. But I think in the case of him being combination with different villain, like him being this character being combination of two different characters, I think this works out better than the way it did with the last film, because the last film it turned out pretty bad with Whiplash, where he's basically a combination of two completely different characters who have nothing to each other at all, and those are Whiplash and the Crimson Dynamo. This film actually has two characters who are related to a major storyline and they're combined into one. I get why we can't have Maul in the movie, because, well, he's a minor villain who is just a terrorist Tony kills in the comics. In the film, having Adrian Killing get the extremist powers, this to me is fine. I don't have a really big problem with it at all. No, it's perfect aside development. It makes him more interesting of a villain that way, where he actually gets powers. I mean, when can you actually see a movie where you actually don't have a villain who just basically gets this big suit up sequence and then basically go fight Iron Man? This film actually has a guy get actual powers. Though with some science per se, but it's not him like putting on a suit like we had with, at least we're not retreading the way it was with the last film where you had the villain just get like put in a suit to fight Iron Man like they would Ironmonger. At least that made sense. What they would Whiplash made no sense at all. This will make a heck of a lot more sense to do. I mean, give him powers. Yep. And of course, when Iron Man fought Loki, they fought a freaking army of aliens. Next time he shows up, fights an army of robots. Yep. Though by Infinity War, he's fighting more aliens. And then, of course, for Civil War, he's fighting a bunch of superheroes. Yeah. But at least this film did take some interesting ideas. I think probably, in my opinion, the best thing to do with this movie was the debut of the Hall of Armors. I am so happy they finally had this thing make an appearance in the movies. This might think it appears only in this movie, which is kind of weird because they don't have appear in any other movie at all. Like, they don't have to show up in Age of Ultron. Well, they had kind of briefly some armors, but not a whole Hall of Armors. Yes, this is one of, for anybody who's an Iron Man fan, they love this thing. I think my friend Edgar loves seeing the Hall of Armors in this movie. But the whole thing with him blowing them up, that is not exactly, it's kind of original per se, but have all these armors flying around by themselves by remote control. That is actually something that's not original to the movie at all. That comes from the storyline involving the Ironmonger when Rhodey took over as Iron Man, like, in order to make sure that Obadiah Stane, who is, by the way, nothing like what he is in the movies, where he's like a hippie. This is, of course, a character by Danny O'Neill, where he decided to remote pilot the Iron Man armors to fall in the ocean. Basically, kind of getting rid of them in a way, while basically allowing Obadiah to get hands. This is a very similar thing to do in the movie. I would say take inspiration from that. Or this could be a nod to that, but at least not fall in the ocean this time. This time they just self-destruct, like every single armor he works so hard to build just blows up. Though some of this is undone by the next appearance by Iron Man in Age of Ultron. Yep. Now, is there any brand spanking new armor that he wears in the movie? Well, the armor he does wear in the movie, which is this armor here, that's actually extremist armor from the comic books. That's the armor he wears, like, I think he wore this armor just prior to this movie, but that's all I can think of. Yeah. I like in the last one we had the live action with the Silver Centaurian armor, and the nod to the fact comes out of a suitcase. This one is basically just back to normal stuff they were doing before when it comes to Iron Man armors, okay? So yeah, that's it for this particular review. My next video I'm hoping to do a review of the newest episode of Case Closed. And the movie review, which will be a review of the next MCU film, which I've only seen once. And I never saw this film in theaters, surprisingly. Yep. I'll talk about the next video. We'll talk about Thor: The Dark World. We'll talk about the next movie review, okay? See you next two. Bye.